You're going to have 1 minute to respond. In terms of the police department, the answer you just gave was sort of a long-term possible solution to the problem. If you're elected day one, you're in town hall, what do you do short-term for that police department? What do you actually do with the police department specifically if elected?
Again, it's not just an issue with the police department itself, but it's an issue with all of our departments in general. One of the things that I will do, and this is something that I've talked about all along, is I will have weekly senior staff meetings, where once a week I'll be meeting with folks like the police chief and the superintendent and the fire chief and the finance director. So these issues can be brought out and discussed on a weekly basis, because the police chief may have a concern that he's not sure how to handle, but maybe it's something that the superintendent has handled in the past, and she may be able to provide him some guidance and some help in those areas. I think if we get our departments, if we break them out of the silo mentality that they're currently in now, and get them to start working a little bit better together, having them communicate more together, I think a lot of these problems would be taken away, because there would be some assistance and some support to these folks. So that is something that I would start with the first Monday of my office.
Thank you. Round 4. The order this time will be Paul Roy, Kurt Miller, and Gene Loda. And this is the question. A large portion of Tri-Town Plaza remains vacant. Should some type of tax break or tax incentive be offered to spur development there? Mr. Roy, you have 2 minutes to answer. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much, Eugene. As you recall, 2 years ago when I ran, I had said that I would get the tax issue settled at Tri-Town Plaza. That was taken care of. And to that end, now it becomes the owner's responsibility to be able to sell his mall, his shopping center. The ball has to be back in his court. We've taken care of the tax issue. I have received suggestions from folks as to what they would like to see go into Tri-Town Plaza. I have passed those suggestions along. Many of the suggestions that our townsfolk made have already been tried by the owner of the shopping center. And I think it is important to get the shopping center full. There's no doubt about it. But I think an important part of this issue, though, is that we did give Mr. Spector a refund in his taxes. Unfortunately, Mr. Spector didn't put that money back into the plaza. So the plaza is now becoming more dilapidated than it was before. The owner needs to reinvest some of his own money into it. And then I can understand where the town might consider tax incentives, because I think it's not just for Tri-Town Plaza. If we're going to offer tax incentives, it has to be for everybody, not just for the Tri-Town Plaza. To that end, we did have a committee going with the Board of Selectmen. We were studying this. We were having meetings right along, and then the last meeting we didn't have enough people for a quorum. So we are trying to get this program into place, and if I am your first selectman, we will continue to work on that tax incentive program.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, you have 2 minutes to answer or rebut. Go right ahead.
I'd kind of like to do both if I actually could, Eugene. In the Democratic Seymour Vision newsletter, which was put out during the campaign last year, one of the comments that the first selectman said, and I'll agree with the thing that he just said, but one of the things that he did say is, I will aggressively work to bring new retailers to Tri-Town Plaza with an enhanced economic development, which will enhance economic development, and the lives of all Seymour residents who look forward to a return of retail establishments in the center. So the question I would then ask is, what are these steps that have been taken? Unfortunately, what we do in Seymour is we continue to say Tri-Town, Tri-Town, Tri-Town. And the thing that we forget is we need to be looking at our overall economic development picture. There's very specific reasons why retailers are not coming to Seymour. And until we take a step back, put ourselves in the place of a business owner, and ask ourselves that question, we're never going to be able to solve this problem. Mr. Roy is correct. We do need to have tax incentives. And as a person who ran 2 years ago primarily on economic development, I need to ask him the question 23 months later, why are these plans not put in place? At the same time, we need to take a look at the perception that people have of the town of Seymour. Is it the perception that a person who is not from Seymour is going to make them want to come to Seymour? One of the things that my father always said is that the perception of a community is determined by 4 things. It's churches, it's parks, it's schools, and it's downtown. Because generally when someone who is not from Seymour is coming here, they're going to one of those 4 places, whether it's to be a soccer game with their kid, to a high school event here. Other than churches, which we have no control over, I think we're falling down in that area. And I don't think we're putting forward the proper perception to these businesses. So again, as first selectman, one of the first things that I would do in the first 2 months is have this tax incentive plan completed and put forward.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Loda, you have 2 minutes to answer. Are we okay? Sorry about that. You have 2 minutes to answer. Go right ahead.
Okay. Once again, I know you're not supposed to agree with opponent, but I do agree with what Mr. Miller just said for the simple reason that article, what he read to you was in Mr. Roy's, and I have him here. There's 2 flyers that went out in 2009 stating he was going to work very vigorously to bring retail stores into the Tri-Town Plaza. And now he's trying to say he never said that. Well, folks, here's the evidence. He did say it in black and white. So the fact that obviously there's no stores down there because I haven't seen anybody shopping down there. So to say now that he didn't say that and he only said he was going to settle the lawsuit, which I commend him for doing that, but the fact remains he really didn't do anything. And I personally spoke with Mr. Spector, the owner, and you know, economic times are not good. And he said that when Mr. Roy first came into office that he talked with him, and he had mentioned tax incentives, offered tax incentives to bring somebody who wants to come to Seymour and build in Seymour. And it just kind of went over, nothing was done about it. And then just recently, he spoke with the economic development director and had the same conversation. And when he brought up tax incentives again, it just went in one ear and out the other. And apparently, this administration isn't interested in tax incentives. Well, how else do you bring people from the outside into Seymour? You've got to give them a reason to want to build here. And to blame the owner of the property for not putting the tax money that he was overtaxed for, they failed to mention that. He was overtaxed, and they went to court. And, you know, it was in court for like 5 years. Finally, it was settled, but we paid him back $140,000 because he was overtaxed. And for him to put money into the building, he's not going to do it until he has somebody who wants to give him specifications and wants to bring some stores into town. So,
Okay.
you know, it's a difficult problem, but I am all for tax incentives.
I think the obvious follow here is to Mr. Roy. One thing that Kurt Miller had just said, and after I ask my question, you have a minute to respond, was that you had promised to, I think the quote was, aggressively work to solve the issues at Tri-Town. What have you done?
Yes, we have, whenever someone calls, or when I mentioned this, people have given me suggestions, people have called, I have passed these on to either the property manager or sent Mr. Spector an email. There is not a lot of people that are knocking on the door to get into Tri-Town Plaza. So I don't know, you know, how more aggressive you can be if there's nobody interested in going there. You have to sit in my place and see what's going on, and that these folks are not looking to go into Tri-Town Plaza. They are looking to go into other areas that the building is ready for them to move into. They're not going to invest their own money into a place like Tri-Town Plaza. They are looking for a place that they can move into, and that's the story that I've been told.
Thank you. Brings us to our 5th round of questioning, which we've dubbed the lightning round. So hold on. In this round, candidates will be asking each other questions. The questions they will ask each other were reviewed and approved by the Valley Independent Sentinel earlier this week. And the way this works, candidate A will pose a question to candidate B. Candidate B has 2 minutes to respond. Candidate A then has 1 minute to rebut. I have the option of a follow-up question which will be followed by a 1-minute answer. We used alphabetical order to determine the order in this round. So Mrs. Loda, your first question should be directed to Mr. Miller.